What's up, everybody? It's your boy ShowtimeDr. I'm back here to give you guys another story because everyone always likes my stories. So I gotta say, first of all, if you're in like a super happy mood and you want to stay in a super happy mood, you may not want to watch this. It's not like horribly depressing or anything like that, but it is kind of a bittersweet story. So if you're cool with that, there's your warning. I personally am probably going to have to swig a bunch of this apple cider, which I should save for the stream, but oh well. So, what I want to talk to you guys today, I've been thinking about this for the last week or so. There's a friend of mine, his name's Jack, and I want to tell you guys his story and share with you what I know about him. I do my best to remember everything, but, so we'll get into it here. There was a guy, well, actually, before I even start with that. So I was kind of down on my luck. It was right around, when was that? Somewhere around, you remember the big financial collapse, for those of you that were around in 2008, when, I forget what all the companies were, but one by one they fell like dominoes, and then eventually jobs dried up, economy got screwed, they started to add a lot more government subsidies to like food stamps and unemployment checks, etc. Well, I found myself on the wrong end of that, so I was pretty much, I'm living out of my car and, you know, staying with family members when I can, staying with friends when I can, but there were some nights I slept in that car, man, and I was in the city of Fullerton at the time, Fullerton, California, and for those of you that know Fullerton, California, you know the police have quotas out there, so they will ticket you as much as they possibly fucking can, and they did their best on me, man. I think I got like 4 tickets for either, there was this one time, the street sweeper was coming, and I was like, oh shit, he's on the other side of the road, so I fucking, you know, woke up, turned my key, and then took off before he could get over there, and then I get the fucking, the ticket later. The asshole had taken the picture of my fucking license plate. He hadn't even like went over to street sweep that side yet. So that shows you how that fucking city is. And fuck you, Fullerton, the entire fucking city. You're a cool place otherwise, but the police there make that place fucking unbearable. And it's not, I'm not disparaging cops per se, because I know they're just following orders, but whoever the fucking admin is there, fuck you guys. You know, with all that shit that went down there, the whole Kelly Thomas thing, fuck all of you. But anyways, I'm trying to be positive, so let me tell the damn story. So, I'm looking for work and, you know, just surviving, and there's a guy, I walk into a LAN center one day. Now, for those of you that don't know what a LAN center is basically, you walk in, there's a bunch of networked computers, and sometimes they're there, you can do like Office, Word, documents, print stuff, whatever you want to do, but this particular one, it's a gaming center, basically. They're really popular in like China and Korea, etc. And you know, you got your own station, you pay a certain amount a day. At that place, it was $10 a day. And actually it was 15. No, it was $15 a day, but then 10 after 4 or 6 or whatever the fuck it was. Well, anyway, so I walk in there and I'm hanging out, I'm getting to know people, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And that was right around when World of Warcraft Burning Crusade dropped. And still my favorite expansion to this day for that game. And, you know, you got a lot of downtime and you can only go out and interview and stuff so much. You gotta have something to do during the day when you're not hanging out with family or going out to eat or whatever. So that was the easiest way for me to keep myself entertained while still not spending a ton of money. And oftentimes I would just sit back and watch people because I had a budget, and, you know, I still got to pay for food, still got to pay for gas, still got to pay my phone bill. So I have, you know, people to call me back on, hey man, we got a gig out here, come do it for a couple days, whatever the deal was. And so, well, eventually one night I'm sitting there, I forget if it was like my first, second, or third night, but there's this dude named, I would find out later his name's Jack. And he's playing World of Warcraft, and he has a mage. It turns out to be an ice mage, a human ice mage. And they're sitting outside Karazhan. And I remember Ventrilo was the popular program. Nowadays it's Discord, but Ventrilo was a popular program back in the day for VoIP and all that. So I hear this voice on his computer, and the guy's like, hey, Katrona, because Katrona was the name of his mage. Katrona, are you ready yet? And here's this guy, like, and he's like super fucking pissed. He puts on his headset. He's like, no, I'm not fucking
ready yet. I haven't sorted my reagents. I haven't gotten my buffs up, and I haven't summoned any water yet. So now I'm not ready.
And he's like, you know, like basically like tell this guy to fuck off. And I remember I looked at him, and he didn't know I was looking at him. I looked at him. I was like, wow, that guy's an asshole. And it's funny because I remember this now, and I was just like, what the fuck? And then, anyways, didn't interact with them at all that night. You know, I might have watched them a little bit, but it was kind of interesting because I had always played a paladin up until that point. It was interesting to watch people play like warriors and stuff and look at their perspectives as to what they were doing on like raid battles or PvP or whatever. It's pretty fun. Well, a couple nights later, it might have been a week later, whatever it is, I'm playing, and this guy comes up behind me. He's like, hey, man. Oh, that's cool, man. You got a paladin, huh? And I think I had like a mage as a sub character or whatever. He's like, oh, cool, man. Yeah. So what do you do? And like, you know, we started chopping it up a little bit. Like, yeah, this is what I roll. I roll fire. I roll holy. This is what I do. This is our guild. This is what we can clear to, etc., etc. And so we start chopping it up, and eventually we kind of get to, you know, kind of that friendship beginner, you know, like, hey, so this place, it closes at, I forget what time, I think it was like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. It was something like that. So you could stay there most of the night, go sleep in your car. I think they opened up at like 11:30 or something the next day. So depending on what I had to do, I could go get it all done in the morning, or I could just keep sleeping until they were open and go eat. And I had a thing, if y'all are wondering how I survived and stuff, I had a gym membership, so that's how I'd go shower. Or sometimes I'd go hang out at families' houses and they'd let me shower, whatever the case was. So, well, anyways, after 2, the place closes, and he has this big Astro van. For those of you guys that remember those giant fucking vans from like the 90s. And so he's like, hey, John, why don't you come to Denny's? I'm like, because you know how it's kind of that thing, like either when you're on a diet or you're on a budget. In my case, it was a budget, to where I'm like, fuck, man, I'm gonna spend money going to this Denny's. But I'm like, but this guy wants to hang out, and goddamn, dude, like, I'm fucking lonely because you only get to talk to so many people, you know, that are new. So I'm like, all right, I'll go hang out with this guy. And so we went to the Denny's, and I was like super fucking tired, I remember. And, you know, we ate whatever, eggs and hash browns and all that shit, and he's just going on and on and on about video games. And, you know, he would tell me, and I would find out over the course of the next couple months, like, this guy, he loved like Mirror's Edge. He liked the Alice in Wonderland games, the one where Alice has the knife, you know, and he's just talking about World of Warcraft. And like, don't get me wrong, obviously I like video games, I got a fucking channel on it, etc. But this guy was on another level as far as like dedication and stuff and the interest. And so eventually I was just like, God, I want to get away from this dude, because like, just that night, because I'm like, I'm tired, I don't want to hear about fucking games anymore, I'm done. And he just kept talking. Like, he was I found out over the course of knowing him, he was a chatterbox. He just loved to talk. And so in a way, he's kind of like me in that way, you know, like sometimes you just get on a roll, you want to start talking to people, and he was lonely. And as I would find out, let me pull up a picture of him here. So that's him on the lower left there. Yeah, that was them at one of their hangouts that they were doing for the family or whatever. So, and as you can see, I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, he looks like a dork. Well, full disclosure, how I looked at the time, I looked like a fucking dork too. That's when we were protesting against Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor here after he raised taxes on us. So I look like a fucking dork too. So that was just 2009 right there. And actually me and Jack were going, let me see if I could find it. I got like a ton of photos to go over. There it is. Me and Jack made all these signs, and we went to one of the rallies for one of the local radio shows to protest all the tax increases that were going on at the time. Because, you know, we were in a bad economy, and then we were getting fucked over with more taxes. It sucked. But so anyways, so even though he kind of looks dorky, hey, I look like a dork too. So who knows? We were both in, he was in his early or mid-20s, I believe, at that point. Yeah, it was early 20s actually, and I was in my late 20s at the time. So Um, so, we got, there's this guy here, and we are, kind of starting to get. I remember when he made that photo. We put the tea bags on the ECO there by the G. For those of you guys that know what that means. Um, you know, we clicked, and I met his family, and then, well, eventually, I didn't know it at the time, but him and his mom, they were on the outs with each other. And so his mom basically kicked him out of the house, and her reasons were he's spending too much time playing video games. He needs to get a job. He finished his associate's degree for art at one of the local schools, and apparently he wasn't doing anything with it. That's what she said. I don't know the full details. He was telling me he was working stuff, but people were ripping him off, and so whatever. I don't know how all that was going, but so long story short, this guy now has no place to live, and he doesn't have. He actually ended up fucking up his Astro van. I don't know what happened, but he lost it. So now he's just, taking the bus and he's walking. And well, anyways, so he comes up to me one night. I forget. It was probably like a couple months after we knew each other. He comes up to me and he's like, "Yo, I don't have anywhere to stay. My mom kicked me out, and do you have a place for me?" And so, like, I was looking at him because up until this point, even though I'm sure a couple people could tell, no one knew, but the greater majority of people knew that I didn't have a place to stay either, and I was staying in my car. Or that they didn't know it, rather. So I'm looking at him, I'm like, well, fuck. And so I got to tell him my secret. Like, I can give him the passenger seat of my car. And on occasion, we can go to, like, friends' houses and families' houses. And I'm like, oh, there's a need there, and this guy has a need, and you're kind of in a similar situation. So I was like, okay, yo, come walk with me. And so we walk out, and I go to where I'm parked, and I'm like, yo, get in. Because literally I didn't want anyone to see us talking about what I was going to tell them. Because, there's still that embarrassment factor and all that. And I tell him, I'm like, look, man, I'm like, you don't have a place to stay? I don't really have a stable place to stay either. All I got is this car right now, and I told him the same thing. Occasionally, we can go hang out at some of my friends' houses, etc. But all I got for you, man, is this passenger seat. Is that good enough for you? And he's like, yeah, that's good enough for me. So me and him became partners there, survivors, as it were. And for the most part, because we went through, he had like a Game Boy, Nintendo DS or whatever that we would play. Just as a off, when we'd get it charged, and then that was stuff to do in the car and when we were bored. And this was before the days of like, cell phones that had lots of interesting games on them. So, well, we were getting to the point because we sold. Like, we pawned a bunch of stuff. Like, we actually ended up pawning that DS, and we pawned a bunch of the games, and we pawned, like, a bunch of shit, because I was starting to run out of money. Because, full disclosure, what had happened was, I was on unemployment, and I had gotten a friend that lived a couple blocks away. I'm like, yo, can I get this mailed to you? Because it's money for me to survive. And he understood. He's like, yeah, no problem, John. So I was like, cool. But there was some stupid-ass thing in the paperwork. They were probably overburdened because so many people didn't have jobs at that point. Well, they didn't pay me for fucking 8 weeks, which is basically 2 months. And so eventually it's just like, well, fuck, I'm supposed to have all this money so that I can continue to go around and do what I need to do. And I'm starting to run out of money. So I'm like, look, man, like, we got to pawn this shit. And we got to do whatever we can, even if we find, like, and we did. We found a couple one-day gigs of, hey, help move out this stuff. Hey, help us do this job or whatever. I'm like, we gotta fucking, like, survive, man, because, we don't got, other than a very few things, we don't got too many people to help us. So we were sitting there at that LAN center, man. Some days we couldn't even play games. We just sit in the back. And the guy at the front desk, he was really cool to us. He's like, hey, man, so-and-so left 2 hours on their account. Do you want it on your account? I was like, oh, sick, man. Yeah, let's do that. And then we'd get to play for a little bit. And some people, they buy us food and, yeah, hey man, here, have a piece of pizza. And, there was just a real good community there that supported us. And I remember when we finally ran out, I had $5 left one night. And this was maybe a week and a half or so until I got my money. And I was like, fuck, man. I'm like, I gotta feed 2 people with $5. What the fuck am I gonna do? And eventually, I saw there was a Der Wiener Schnitzel. Those who don't know what Der Wiener Schnitzel is, it's a hot dog place out here with a German kick. They got like bratwurst and all that. Well, Wiener Schnitzel was advertising, what was it? It was like 5 chili dogs or 5 chili cheese dogs or whatever the fuck it was for $5. And one of the guys was like, yo, we're going to go to Wiener Schnitzel. You want to come? I'm like, yeah, man. And I didn't tell Jack because it was a spur of the moment thing. And either that or he was like off doing something somewhere else and I couldn't find him. So I was like, okay. So I fucking literally, I went there. I got the hot dogs. I cut one of the fucking hot dogs in half. And I was like, yo, man, this is our last meal, man. So enjoy it. So I gave it to him and he just gave me like this thumbs up. He's like, he just like starts eating and shit. Well, anyway, so somehow we made it past that. I forget what the fuck happened, but someone helped us or whatever it was. And well, anyway, so I trying to remember, did that happen like that? Oh yeah. Okay, so well. Eventually the money came through and I had to go to my friend's house like late because I was like, damn dude, like I can't even put gas in the car at this point. And Jack's sitting in the car and I'm gone for like 20 minutes or whatever because that guy wants to talk. And but yeah, I finally got the damn mail and it was 4 checks and I forget how much money it was, but it was like, you know, somewhere around the realm of like $2,000 that I should have had over the course of all this time. And so I'm fucking relieved, man. And so I get back to the car. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to play this up for Jack. And so I sit down and I'm like, God, why? You know, like fucking around. And he's like, oh, man, really? And, you know, we're both like fucking starving. And so I told him, I'm like, nah, man, just kidding. I threw the fucking... the envelopes on there. Now, somehow at that point, I had gotten, I forget if someone gave me like $20 or some money or something, but I had enough money on hand to do, like, get a meal or something. So I told Jack, I'm like, yo, what's 24 hours around here? And there was a Jack in the Box, which is a fast food place out here. They got your traditional, you know, burger, fries, stuff. And for the first time in about like 2 months, I told Jack, I'm like, yo, get whatever the fuck you want. Because normally I was like, yo, let's go on the dollar menu. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm like, get whatever the fuck you want. So he got whatever combo he got. I forget what it was. But it was like either one of the big burgers or a big chicken sandwich or whatever. I got the fucking double famous star. Or actually, it might have been a double western with barbecue sauce and onion rings. Upgrade the fries, big ass fucking drink. And I was like, dude, let's live this shit up. And then we went and we slept. And then the next day we went back to a land center, paid for all days. And I actually had to go to the check cashing place because that's how I had to roll back then. I had bad credit. And we, I guess maybe this isn't the best picture to have up. Well, anyways, so, we ended up, you know, I got the check cash in place. Like I said, I paid for all that stuff, and I went on Craigslist, because at the time, you could go on Craigslist before all the fucking scammers flooded Craigslist, and be like, okay, we need to find a place to rent, because we need a place to stay. And so we found this place in Santa Ana, which is one of the cheaper places to live out here. It was like $400 a month, and then she found out we had 2 people, so I think she charged us $500. But it was, you know, I mean, a roof over our heads, electricity, a warm place to sleep. He had a computer and storage, and I believe I did too. So we went and got those, and we didn't have to play at the LAN center anymore. And actually, I'm skipping ahead a bit, I think. Am I skipping ahead? No, I'm not. Okay. So, well, anyway, so we had that place, and he had a certain amount of money he made. I forget exactly what he did. It's something to do with art or... Oh, no, I think his grandfather gave him money because it was his birthday or whatever. So he had like a ton of money he got, and I had all the money, like I said before. Well, we're at this place 3 or 4 months, and everything's basically going well. We're getting jobs and all that. And well, anyways, at some point, we or he rather, because he was the type of guy like. Let me share the good times before I get to this. Like we would get like these fruit juices, like the limeade or whatever, and oh wait, I don't know if you guys can see me. Oh yeah, you can. So we get like the limeade and stuff, and we get a bunch of soda. And he loved junk food. He'd eat like chips, Mountain Dew, all that shit, taquitos, whatever. And so, like, I remember one day I was like, "Oh, I've never had limeade before. That's cool." And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to bed because I was tired." And he stayed up all night playing Warcraft or whatever. And I wake up and I went to the refrigerator. I'm like, "Yo, where's the limeade?" And he just gave me this smirk, like, "I drank it all, bro." I was just like, "You motherfucker." I had to go buy more, but it was that kind of thing, and it was pretty fun, and we had some good times there, and it was nice, man, because like I remember when we got the place, I was like, "Yo, let's go to celebrate." And we went to McDonald's, cheap celebration. I'm like, "This will always be known as Celebration McDonald's, bro." He's like, "Yeah, man." And we're just being dorks. Well, eventually, because he was kind of like, he wasn't that motivated, and I struggle with that too sometimes, or to where he had like a job he did over the course of the previous year, and tax season came up. So I was like, "Yo, file your taxes and you'll have the extra money and we can pay rent, longer and longer, and I'm gonna do it too with all the stuff I did." And he was just like, "Yeah, I'll get to it later." 1 day goes by, 2 days go by, and he's not doing it. He's just sitting there playing Warcraft. He's fucking addicted to Warcraft more than me. And I was like, "Okay, Jack, like, I understand, but dude, you gotta sit down and do this because the deadline's coming." And he's like, "Oh no, because whatever." He just didn't want to do it. So I sat down and fucking did his taxes for him. He's like, "Oh, thanks, man." I was just like, "Don't thank me, dude. We need this fucking money." Like, and then eventually a couple months go by and he can't pay the bills anymore. So I told him, I'm like, "Look, like, I'm not gonna kick you out, but I'll give you like 3 months." Because he could partial pay me like about, I think it was like 40% of the rent at the time, his share of the rent. And I was like, "Okay, dude, like, you gotta take this seriously and go look for stuff because I can't pay for both of us and food and travel expenses and rent, etc., etc. I can't pay for all that shit by myself, so you're gonna have to get off your ass and do it." And he wouldn't. And it was sad because, here's this guy, he's my friend, but at the same time, he's not taking care of his business. So eventually I moved in with another roommate, and I told him, I'm like, "Look, man," and I gave him like $40 and I gave him a bus ticket. I'm like, because him and his mom, I should explain this before we go. Him and his mom had been fighting the whole time, and I had met her a couple times. She came into the land center one time and like bitched him out over something. And everyone's laughing at him, and it's all embarrassing and shit. And they just didn't get along. And long story short, Jack didn't have a stable role model as a father. The person that was his biological dad just basically abandoned the family, pretty much from birth, is the story I got. So every time I'd ask Jack about it, he'd be like, "Fuck that guy, I don't want to talk about him," and whatever. So I don't know like the whole story or anything, but essentially it was something like that. So he never had a stable male role model, which, in my opinion, is one of the most important things you can do, especially for a son. Because, like, a mother gives you emotional reference and kind of how to interact, and she kind of teaches you all that stuff, and she fusses over you and etc. A good mother. And a father kind of teaches you, "Why are you wasting your time with this bullshit? This is how you do this. This is how you take responsibility, etc., and discipline." Like, that's what a good father should do. And that's why, in my opinion, he wasn't motivated to do a lot of things. He escaped to World of Warcraft and other games as his fantasies. And this is all looking back on it now for me. And so, but at the same time, I'm like, well, that's not his fault, though, that his father wasn't there, because, what are you going to do? And then they never found another stable role model for him, unfortunately, his mother. So, and she was quite the character. I'm not going to get too far into her just because I don't want to be an asshole, but I will speak on her a little bit later. So we'll get to that. But, so anyways, back to the story where I was like, Jack, okay, I know you hate your mother, and I agree with you, she can be an asshole, but you go home, dude. You have to go home and make up with her because she's your mother. She's the family that you have. You have a good extended family that loves you. Like, but you need to share with them your vulnerabilities and the stuff that you're struggling with so they can help you through it. Like, if you just keep running away from it, that was my advice to him. So I'm like, here's $40. Here's a bus pass. You get them all across Orange County for the day. I was like, Jack, just go home, dude. I'm sorry, man. I can't support you anymore. And he was like super pissed at me, I found out later, because, I basically, for lack of a better term, in his words, I abandoned him. But I didn't abandon him. I kept him on board like 2.5 months more, basically for free, rent free, etc., etc. And he just disappeared on me and he wouldn't pay rent and he just didn't want to confront the responsibility. And so it was what it was. So, anyway, some time goes by. It's probably about, trying to think. I don't know. It was somewhere in the realm of like 5 months, 6 months or something. And he's with his mom for a while, and then they have a falling out, so he basically goes back to being, on his own again. And he was actually living with another friend at this point, so he wasn't like completely homeless or anything. But, he would come he would come up to me, and I knew he was struggling. And this opportunity came up to where one of my family members, they wanted me to house sit because they were going to be on a cruise or something for a week. And I was like, all right, didn't tell them, but I'm like, hey, yo, Jack, they're going to be gone for a week. It's a nice place. It's stable. We can eat. We just got to, like, take care of the pets and shit. You want to come help me do that, and then you can be there. You don't have to worry about all this shit for a week. And he's just like, oh, man, yeah, man, please, man, let's go. And so I take him to this place, and we're chopping it up there. Well, unfortunately, I had no fucking idea. He's allergic to cats. He never told me this. He has asthma and he's allergic to cats. And so there's a cat at the house. And the cat comes up like within 10, 15 minutes and starts, snuggling against his leg, wants attention. And I just notice him and he starts going. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, I'm allergic to cats. I was like, ah, fuck, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, okay, well, what's going on? Like, because he was actually looking pretty bad, like, red face and sweating and all that shit. And so he starts to tell me, he's like, yeah, I have asthma and I'm allergic to cats, so I need my asthma inhaler. I'm like, okay, well, where's your asthma inhaler? It's at my mom's house. So I was like, well, like, I know you hate your mom, but we got to go get it, dude, because he's like, no, I'm not going to go back there, because they were really fighting at this point. And so I'm in a bad situation now because I'm like, well, fuck, I got $80 for the rest of the week, I remember. How much is an asthma inhaler? $40 if you go to like CVS or whatever. And I was like, shit. I'm like, I got to cut my spending money in half. And I'm like, but this guy's going to fucking die. I'm like, look, man, like, take the car. Here's $40. Go to CVS or whatever the fuck and get an asthma inhaler. So I got it for him. Or he got it. He went out and got it. He goes out, he comes back, and he tells me, he's like, yeah, man, when I walked in, the pharmacist actually made me sit there for a while, and they had an in-person doctor or whatever, I guess, at the CVS. I'm like, sir, are you okay? And he, like, took, all the blood pressure and heartbeat and temperature and all those readings and everything. And he's like, wow, yeah. And he diagnosed him with, or not diagnosed, he gave him a steroid inhaler. Now, I don't know much about inhalers because I don't have asthma. But apparently inhalers work. There's a downer inhaler and there's an upper inhaler. The upper inhaler is a steroid. The downer, it's like the equivalent of, drinking alcohol per se, as the way it makes you feel like you're going down and you're chill, etc. Not the alcohol and stuff. But so this was the first time he had a steroid inhaler. He's like, oh man, it feels really weird and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, so I got to talking with him about his health. I'm like, well, what you got anything else going on just in case, you know? Like, because at this point, I'm like, fuck, man, if he collapses, I'm going to have to, like, call 911 and hopefully let him know, like, yo, he has this, he has that, and hopefully that would help him. And it didn't get to that point, luckily, but he told me one thing, though. And he was like, yeah, when I was born, I had a hole in my heart. And it went away. And this, like, immediately, like, triggered, like, wah, 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 wah. I was like, oh, shit, because I had the same fucking thing. Now, full disclosure on me. In fact, here, I'll show you. You probably can't see it, but there is a scar. I had open heart surgery when I was 10 years old. So I know all about that shit. And it was the same thing. The doctor told my dad, or my parents, rather, yeah, he's got a hole in his heart, but it'll close. Don't worry about it. And I guess maybe it's a common thing. No, I'm not a medical person. But, well, when I was 10, I was playing in NJB, which is a junior basketball league, and I had like a foot injury. So I went in to get my foot examined. And on the regular checkup portion, the pediatrician's listening to my heart, and she's taking a really long fucking time. And I was like, and my dad's like, oh, well, what's going on? He's like, I hear a murmur. I hear an echo. You know, like, oh, echo, murmur. Like, what? And I'm a kid, so I don't really know. So it's like, well, they did one of those, X-ray style scans, and like, oh, shit. The hole's still there. It's like, what? The doctor said it would close. And so, long story short, I got the surgery to fix it. At the time, the surgery involved actually cutting me open and taking tissue from my body and sewing the hole closed. Which they did, and they did a fucking great job, and I love all those guys that did that up at, they're probably all retired by now, but up at LA, Kaiser Permanente up there. So I was like, well, fuck. I'm like, well, I told him, I'm like, Jack, like, I told him my experience, and I was like, go and make sure you get that shit checked out, dude, because if you don't do that, that's going to adversely fuck you up. And what the doctor had told me was, and I explained all this to him. I'm like, because I had I forget what the technical term is, like aortal septum defect. Essentially, there's a hole in the top chamber, a dime size shape. And so for those of you that know how the heart works, there's the 4 chambers where all the blood comes in and it gets oxygenated. And then it starts pumping out to all the different portions of your body through all the different veins. And so, well, one of the holes on the top, the blood that was already oxygenated was leaking back down into the regular chamber. And that's a big fucking no-no, because if that shit goes on long enough, your heart hardens and you're fucked. Your heart just ceases to work because it gets, I don't know exactly how it works, like it gets too heavy or it just becomes material-wise just not unable to perform its function. Whatever, long story short, you fucking die by the time you are... If you're lucky, you'll get to your 20s. But you'll be fucking dead after that. So, luckily they caught that in me, and I'm alive thanks to that person. To this day. But, Jack at the time was 24. So I told him, I'm like, no, get that shit checked out. Like, seriously. And I should have fucking known, because I've already told you the type of person he was, where, it's just like, oh, I should do something. Yeah, well, whatever. And, well, hold on. So that goes by, and he made up with his mom eventually, and he's living with his mom again. So, there was a point in time, because I remember I let him stay over at my house like 4 or 5 months. Like not the whole time, but off and on. And like I said, I covered his rent when he wasn't paying, etc. So I was really good to him. So one day, we were over there by his place, and I have to drive all the way across the county to go home. So he's like, oh, just come to my place. You can crash. My mom will be cool with it. I'm like, okay. Well, I get over there, and she's pissed off at him for something. Who knows? Could have been anything. And yelling at him, and she's like threatening to call the police on me and shit. And I was like, what did I do? And essentially we had told her, we're like, look, like, I just want to spend the night. I'll sleep on the couch or whatever, because otherwise I got to drive all the way home. And, if you recall, I took care of him for like 4 months. So one night shouldn't be a big deal. And she's just like screaming at me, "This isn't a fucking flop house. Get the fuck out of my house or I'll call the police." Blah, 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 blah. It's just like, all right, she's being irrational. She's being an asshole to me. Fuck her. I'm leaving. So I left, and I think he left too. But before he left, yeah, he came with me. And this is really hard for me. The last image I have of them together, like, how do I say this? She would hit him. Okay, she would hit him, and of course he wouldn't do anything back to her. So she was like full on swinging at him, like right on his fucking chest, like right here, just, "You motherfucker," just like badgering the fuck out of him. And I was just like looking at it like, well, it's her house. What can we do, because we're not welcome here. So let's just go. And so that's the last image I ever saw of them together. Well, eventually, like I said, that was like, I want to say that was a little bit previous to that. I forget the story I'm telling you about when I had them over at my family's house. Well, anyway, so they made up. And they were living together, and I think it was about 2 months or so. And one day, and this is all unbeknownst to me, I wasn't there for any of this, I just got told all this later on. One day Jack wakes up, and his heart is fucking bulged. Like, it had swollen in size like 2 or 3 times, and you could see this noticeable like lump on his chest. And, he's like, "Mom, I think we need to go to the hospital." It's like, oh shit, okay. So they went to the hospital. And I think he was there 1, 2, 3 days, something like that. And, he passed away. His last moments were basically he was on the ventilator, and all the EMTs and stuff, they were all around him trying to do their best to keep him alive, and he just died. And those were his final moments. And his mom was there, and his mom cried, and she would tell me later that his dad actually showed up and was just sitting outside in the hallway. And of course there was all that drama. And it's really hard for me to think about, man, because like he had such a shitty hand. He had such a shitty hand he was dealt in life. Like, he had a father that didn't give a fuck about him. He had a mother that loved him, but they just couldn't get along. And I used to, you'd mock somebody like, "Oh my god, they play too many video games and they don't know how to deal with life situations," and this, that, the other thing, dressing, not taking grooming seriously, etc., etc. But like, I look back on it now and I'm like, there was no one there to teach him all that shit. He was no one to teach him any of that. So and that's just some people in this world, man. They just get fucked, like, instantly, just by who their parents are, life situations, or whatever disease, whatever disability that they have or they develop. And it's not right. It's just not right. It just isn't right. But so I told him one day when he was alive, I was like, hey man, you want to be best friends? And he's like, oh, best friend? I haven't had a best friend in a long time. Just like the way he would like piece together the way he talked. You know, it was very much like just a guy that was still figuring things out, just like we all were, you know, either at some point or maybe you still are. And so I'm trying to think. There were like 2 other points I wanted to cover. I'm trying to remember them all. Well, a while later, because I used to think, I was like, oh man, it would be so cool to be able to like leave a music list when I die so that people could listen to my music whenever, you know, they think about me and stuff. And looking back on it now, you know, how often is that really going to happen? People are thinking about you and they want to listen to a particular playlist or whatever. But you remember that site? I forget what it's called now, but that one website that you go on and you put in like, you know, I want to hear jazz music, and it like puts together a list for you, and you go and you listen to it all. Well, one of the things was I put together one day, I was like, I want to listen to video game music or something, and it'll play like orchestrated Zelda or whatever the fuck. And I remember I looked up one day at work, because I would listen to it at work, and it said, Jack Haug likes this song. That's his full name for disclosure. And I remember it really hit me then. I was like, oh shit, it actually happened. Yeah, I was just like, so I'm listening to like the music list after he's dead, like within that year, and it all just came like full circle for me, man, because he made it to 25 with that condition, and doctors and like friends and stuff, they were all telling me he should have died like in his 20s with that condition. But because, you know, he didn't spend so much time in the sun, and he wasn't out being, you know, being like an athlete trying to do physical activities like crazy, he got those extra years. And like, part of me beats myself up because I'm like, fuck man, I knew how he was. I should have beat him up more when it came to, yo, go to the doctor, get this shit checked out. And I don't know for sure, maybe the whole did close, maybe it was a whole nother thing, but definitely there was some type of heart something or other going on there. And maybe they could have caught it at some point. You know, they could have been like, yo, change your diet, take these pills, something. And I always feel like I know I didn't kill him, you know, but I always feel like I'm like, fuck, if I would have just pushed harder. But in my mind, I know it's just like, there's probably nothing I really could have done short of handcuffing him and driving him to the hospital. And how was he going to pay for any of that? But so that's Jack's story. Jack was a good guy. I always imagined, because, you know, he was always struggling, and I was struggling for a long time too. But I told him one day, I'm like, you know how I imagine us in like, say, in our 40s? I was like, one day you and me, we're going to be at a bar, and we're going to be drinking whatever our favorite drinks are. We actually liked White Russians. That's usually what we had. White Russians, for those who don't know, Kahlua, vodka, milk. And I was like, we're going to be sitting there at the bar, and you're going to be like all like fucking, you know, fancy shirt, business suit, whatever the fuck, wearing. And we're going to be sitting there chilling. I'll be like, thanks, John. Thanks for always believing in me and helping me whenever I needed it. And that was going to be our ending, you know, like our little movie ending of, all right, now we're going to go live the rest of our lives. And I never got to see that day. So I carry a lot of people with me that have passed on. And I always tell myself, I'm like, I got to live enough today, you know, for all of them. And it doesn't always work out, but I have my ups, I have my downs. But I really wanted to share his story with you guys because he deserved better. And, you know, the impact that people make, the impact of being a father figure, even if you're not necessarily in the picture, just something, my God. Or if, you know, you can be a role model to somebody. And I know this is all easy stuff to say, but, you know, get out there and make a difference is pretty much the lesson I want most people to take from this. Like, if you know someone that's down like this, that has issues like this, give them a helping hand, give them a kind word. You know, a kind word can go a long way. And I don't know. I would love to do like some great synopsis that's like some movie star speech or something like that, but that's all I got for this one, guys. So hopefully you're cool with that. Jack, rest in peace. He died in 2010, by the way, so it's been 8 years now. If I was to give his eulogy, I would say he was a creative man who lost his way. He loved fantasy. He had amazing ideas. And he had the heart of someone who just wanted to exist and be well and spread the wellness to others. But we lost him before his time. And I imagine now, I was like, well, because ever since he's died, like they came out with the new Alice in Wonderland game, which he loved that series. They came out with the new Mirror's Edge, which is apparently horrible. I could have listened to him tear it apart. And how many fucking WoW expansions since he's died since 2010? That's like what, Cataclysm or whatever back then. No, that might have been Lich King. Yeah. Oh well, so hope springs eternal. Alright guys, so that's the story about Jack. I'll try to come up with a more positive story next time. But I really wanted to share you guys his story because it deserves to be told. He deserves to be known more so than he was. And I love you, Jack. So, goodbye everybody.